This is Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Gif.
All right, and we're back for our fourth Second Chance episode tonight. Pete, what'd you pick? I
We're
picked
gonna
Janet
talk
Jackson.
about-
Gifford picked Dumb and Dumber, so it's your turn.
We're going to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, and especially of the 80s when I was in my coming of age years, I suppose. But it's not a coming of age movie by any chance, by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a
Kind of
movie.
for Connie Swale.
That's
It is
true.
a coming of
That
age
is true.
movie for Connie Swale. Damn right it is.
It's actually I would say I've watched this movie more times than any other movie other than maybe Three Amigos and Ghostbusters,
Really?
especially from the 80s. I would watch this movie and I'd rewatch it and I'd rewatch it. And I had like most of the lines memorized
did not know that about you.
absolutely loved it. And I had seen other Tom Hanks movies before and I knew who he was, but this was the movie that was like the first big Tom Hanks movie where I really loved him as an actor.
I would say the first big Tom Hanks movie was Big.
Well, no,
that
but
came after this.
That came after this, you
I'm
dumbass.
He's making a joke.
So
It's a bad joke.
I'm just kidding. But I am talking about Dragnet, which was a movie that came about because Dan Aykroyd, who was one of the writers of the movie, obviously one of the lead characters, he loved the original TV show Dragnet, and so then he was able to put this movie together, and he plays the role just absolutely perfectly of Joe Friday. And then Tom Hanks, it was, I'll get into the synopsis here shortly, but it was just so perfect because it was like a crime detective movie, and it was also just such a really great comedy, but not an over-the-top comedy like Naked Gun or something like that. It was just a really good movie that I could just watch over and over again. I want to hear your guys'
So I just wanted to ask first, did you,
Yeah.
if you watched it that many times, did you like own it on VHS or something, or?
I don't remember. I think we rented. It was one of those that we rented, and then I watched it several times when we rented it, and then it was on like HBO and Showtime and whatever. I just remember seeing it many times
Corner
at that
store
age.
afloat, basically the rental of this movie.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, well, I'll go next because I did see it back then and Gifford didn't. I love this movie. I hadn't seen it for, I don't know, God knows, 30 years. And I decided to watch it like, I don't know, maybe a year ago, sometime. I don't remember what led me to like remember it. And I'm like, I have to watch that. And I still loved it. And so watching it again now, I was looking forward to. So this has to be probably one of the greatest days of my entire life. So I saw this movie. I should have looked up the date. So the final day game ever played in history in the World Series was Game 6 of the 1987 World Series between the Twins and the Cardinals. Literally, like the day before, my brother had somehow come into tickets, and we lived 3.5 hours away. But like my aunt and uncle from Sioux Falls were going to Minneapolis. I don't even know how it all came together. They drove me to Minneapolis. I got to go to that game. This is the game where the Twins were down 3-2 in the series. They had just lost 3 in a row on the road. Don Baylor hit his only home run as a Twin to tie the game. And then Ken Herbeck hits a grand slam. And it was the loudest you've ever heard anything in your entire life. And we won. And we go on to win the World Series the next day. And my aunt and uncle took me there and back. My mom and dad were still at home. But so, I mean, that alone makes it one of the best days of my life. I mean, I went to a World Series game. One of my favorite players on my favorite team wins the game with a grand slam. I mean, it's incredible. But so I remember that because it was a day game. It was over by evening, and my brother was going to the U. And so we went to Pizza Hut. We had pizza. I mean, that's fun too.
Lucky.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in Dinkytown at the U, there's Varsity Theater, and so it must have been playing like late run movies because this movie came out in the summer, and this is
Yep.
October now, so it must have been cheap tickets. So this was playing at the Varsity Movie Theater, and we went and saw it together that night after the game. And I mean, I'm 11 years old, and I know Tom Hanks and I know Dan Aykroyd, and I am in love with this movie. I laughed. I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And I love Tom Hanks, and he's obviously one of the best actors ever. But I loved him in the '80s when he played the dumb, like the just be funny and just be dumb because he's
great
Smart
so good.
ass. Yep,
Yes.
smart ass.
And in this movie, like he could just be as dumb as he wanted to, and I just love that. And Dan Aykroyd, as you said, Pete, was just absolutely perfect as a straight man. And so for me, 11 years old, Twins win the World Series. I go to this movie. I mean, you can't beat that. What a memory.
This was peak Tom Hanks comedy. I mean, Tom Hanks had a great career, very serious actor, can do whatever he wants. But during that era, he was in a whole bunch of comedy movies. There's like Bachelor Party. There was The Man with One Red Shoe, Money Pit,
Splash,
yes,
and some of the Splash with a little more
lighthearted
serious parts in there, but
but still lighthearted.
Not like Philadelphia or anything like that. But this was the peak Tom Hanks comedy movie for me.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal: 50% Rotten Tomatoes by critics. Okay, that doesn't shock me. 41% audience score. I'm looking at that and I'm like, what the fuck? How does this movie get that low from the audience? You never see the audience lower than the critics. So, Pete, you and me, we are on an island here, but it is amazing. I love this movie. I think it is hilarious.
Well, and like for me, I can remember watching this movie for the first time like it was yesterday. Because it was yesterday.
Really?
It is the first time I ever saw it. And I love your guys' story about it. I wish I would have saw it when I was 11.
Yeah, I think that would change
actually, this movie came out when I was 10. I would have turned 11 8 days later. As a 46-year-old and as a guy who didn't watch the original show, I knew what they were going for. I love Dan Aykroyd. I love Tom Hanks, but I don't think it hits me as hard as, a crotchety old dude that I am. So I still enjoyed it. And like Pete said, I love early Tom Hanks. Some of his stuff in the comedic realm is awesome. I still watch Big. Courtney and I quote Money Pit left and right. That could have been in the quotable movies that we did a couple weeks ago.
He's almost Jim Carrey-esque, speaking of or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, just the ridiculous characters he could play and how dumb he could act. And I mean, he's so great at everything.
And then you go the other way with Aykroyd, who is the ultimate straight man in this movie. Like there is no laughing, there is no fun. Like he is just straight and narrow, right down the middle the whole time. So you have these two playing off of each other in their comedic primes, in my opinion. So it's awesome in that regard. But I think, I would have enjoyed it more if I saw it when I was younger.
Come on,
when you guys saw
when we got on here, you were trash talking. I want to hear you talk about it for real.
No, I wasn't trash talking the movie so much as Pete, and I'm not going to do that on this episode. So
come on, man.
Hey, you made me do it on Superbad. I put myself out there.
I didn't make you do anything. You were.
Don't worry, man. Nobody's.
It's
not like anybody's listening.
He said, "We've done 21 years of stuff to go back and pick from, and this is what he picked."
I wasn't going to say it. I was not going to say it.
Shall I hop?
Yes,
sorry.
Go right ahead. Yep.
Dragnet is a 1987 comedy detective film directed by Tom. I'm just going to say Mankiewicz here, even though
I thought it was Mankiewicz.
Mankiewicz. I know. All right.
I like Mankiewicz. That's awesome.
It's a good Twins tie-in, Doug Mankiewicz.
Exactly. Yep. Another Twins first baseman.
Was Mankiewicz's wife as hot as the one we know?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, the movie stars Tom Hanks as Detective Sergeant, or Dan Aykroyd as Detective Sergeant Joe Friday, and Tom Hanks as Pep Streebek. Set in Los
I'm
Angeles.
sorry to interrupt, Pete. I
What?
really hate to do this, but I have a note about Mankiewicz, and since you brought it, it's not going to fit later.
Okay.
This
Go
is
for
the
it.
only movie, the only studio movie this guy ever directed. I found when I looked back. He was a writer.
Jesus.
He wrote on Superman and some James Bond movies, but this is it. This is his one studio movie as a director, which I thought was kind of fascinating.
It's interesting because one of the main actors in this movie is from Superman 2. But we'll get into that.
Well, there you go.
Set in Los Angeles, the film revolves around. Is it Superman 6? Gifford?
No, he directed six different movies.
But
Six
were
different
they-
things.
Oh,
Were they
okay.
studio movies or were they like-
Delirious with John Candy.
All right, whatever.
All right.
But that would
That's what I
probably be-
read.
Yeah. Otherwise, it was episodes, but Delirious would be the only. Well, there's Taking Heat, whatever the hell that is. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, Pete.
Set in Los Angeles, the film revolves around their investigation into a series of peculiar crimes and the pursuit of a secretive cult known as PAGAN, People Against Goodness and Normalcy, Pagan.
Good job.
Led by Reverend Jonathan Worley, portrayed by Christopher Plummer.
Spoiler
And
alert.
you probably should mention he's an Oscar-winning actor, Christopher Plummer.
Mhm.
This is a guy who went on. He's been nominated multiple times. Great actor. And here he's playing this ridiculous guy in Dragnet. That's another thing I love about this movie.
Who giggles in odd places.
Yes, he
this
does.
movie.
Joe Friday and Pep Streebek find themselves assigned to solve a string of baffling crimes that defy conventional explanations. Despite their contrasting personalities, they embark on a shared mission to uncover the truth. Friday is a disciplined and serious officer committed to following the rules, and it clashes with Streebek, a more impulsive and unconventional detective. As they delve deeper into the investigation, Friday and Streebek encounter a diverse array of characters. They conduct interrogations, seek information from witnesses, and piece together the fragments of evidence in pursuit of the law. Along the way, they face challenges and obstacles that put their partnership to the test. During the investigation, Joe and Pep cross paths with Connie Swale after saving her life in a snake pit. A seemingly innocent virgin played by Alexandra Paul. Joe and Connie's romantic relationship adds a touch of warmth to the connection to the narrative, also complicating the dynamics of their professional lives. Ultimately, Friday and Streebek locate a hidden pagan compound where Reverend Worley and his devoted followers devise their nefarious schemes. In a showdown, the detectives confront the cult members, leading to the destruction of the criminal organization and restoration of justice. Dragnet is a blend of comedy, mystery, and action, providing an entertaining experience for the audience. The film showcases Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd's comedic talents as they breathe new life into the iconic characters into the iconic character of Joe Friday, with its satirical take on crime solving and the chemistry between the lead actors. Dragnet pays homage to the original TV series.
Well
There
done.
it is.
You sound
So,
like a
now
professional
let's
writer
talk
with all
about-
those big words in there.
Now let's talk about the
Sound
movie.
like me.
It's kind of like, speaking of, you made me think right at the end there, as the homage to the original. It's kind of like the Brady Bunch movie,
Yes.
where it's a comedy. I mean, and it's straight comedy,
making fun of it.
but still, I mean,
But honoring it.
yeah, at the same time, and including like when Florence Henderson comes back at the end of the movie, you've got Harry
Morgan.
Morgan
Harry Morgan.
playing
Yep.
Gannon from the original show in this movie as well, and so it kind of toes that line.
Which technically it follows the storyline. It's technically a sequel to the original TV series, because it's this Joe Friday is the Uncle Joe, is the nephew of the original Dragnet,
Right.
Correct.
and Harry Morgan's character became captain during those years, and it follows up on it. So
Well, and for me,
I don't know.
watching this movie, I mean, I'm thinking MASH the whole time because that's where I know Harry Morgan from. So I get a kick out of seeing him, and he does a great job as well throughout.
I had two things right off the bat in this movie that I really liked. So at the very beginning, there's a voiceover telling us what's going on, but you got all these shots of LA, but they're from 1987, and it's like it's a different place back then, and you're looking at it back then, but it just looks really cool. For me, who likes that kind of stuff, I really enjoyed that. Also,
on that note, though, before you move on, what I had written down was that this is kind of like LA Story in that it formed my vision. It's one of the movies that formed my vision of what Los Angeles is like.
I agree.
Right or wrong, it's what I visualize Los Angeles.
Yeah, and that's what Beverly Hills Cop did for me.
I idealize LA quite often, and it's mostly due to LA Story, which just, I love it.
Yeah.
The other thing I love, and this was in the original show, where they talk about the names being changed, and they said the names have been changed. For example, George Baker is now called Sylvia Wiss.
Yeah.
That's a laugh out loud right at the beginning.
It gives you a little bit of Police Squad in there right away.
That's what I was just going to say. It's a little bit like Naked Gun, but not as much so.
Right.
It's actually got, I think, more of a storyline to it. And it's probably a more purely better movie. Although Naked Gun, I would say, is funnier.
Well, Naked Gun is one-liner after one-liner after one-liner.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's not a knock on Naked Gun in any way.
Mm-mm.
But I thought, like, even the oh, sorry, I was just going to say, even the intro, because you talked about the music and the voiceover, the intro goes from the original Dragnet theme to this kind of rap enforce the law thing.
Oh,
which
we got to get to that at the end of this.
Is a transition, just like the TV show transitioning into the more modern movie.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a good tie-in.
Hold that thought on that song. My God,
please do.
So one of my favorite characters in this movie is Emil Muzz, who we see right off the bat. And in my mind, I always thought I've seen this guy in tons of movies, including Happy Gilmore.
No.
And I looked it up.
I thought so too.
He's not that guy. I don't know this guy from anything.
He was in Superman 2. That's what I was going.
Okay, I don't know that. So
Okay.
So that's who you were talking about.
But he has
Superman 2, the audience may remember, is you had these three villains that were from outer space, and they were all wearing black, and he was the big one.
He was all from Krypton, but he was the one who didn't speak. He was like a mute, but he,
but he was strong, and he was like Superman could. It was like a match to Superman.
Right.
Does he not look just like the guy from Happy Gilmore, though?
I thought the same thing. Because
I
watched this movie with my wife, and I said, I think this guy was in Happy Gilmore.
All my life, I thought that was the same guy, and I just realized that it wasn't.
Something never lead to nothing. Well, and you're thinking you're getting the guy from Superman 2 mixed up with Jaws from the early Bond movies. That's the guy from Happy Gilmore. Was Jaws Bond movies. Both huge.
I don't know all this, so
huge individuals. Well, it's part of my pop culture knowledge. But yes, that's where. And while we're talking about people from other things, I'm assuming you guys recognize Fred Asparagus.
That's what I was telling you from last.
What?
Yes,
I didn't even pick that up.
He's Tito Provencal.
He's right at the beginning.
He's the train engineer where the chemicals got stolen from, and he was beat up. He doesn't have a speaking part, but it was a voiceover.
Just to back up for people that probably don't remember, is the bartender from Three Amigos, who we love to death and love his name, learning his name, Fred Asparagus.
It's like beer.
Rest in peace.
And he is in this movie. It's like beer.
Don't you guys go getting into too much troubles, okay?
We don't have Dave here to do. Let's not get off on a tangent here.
Sorry,
I could see this going off the rails.
So we meet Tom Hanks.
Going off the rails. He was a.
I love the name. I love the name Pep Strebeck.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great name for him. And the first thing he does when Dan Aykroyd says something stupid to him, he does the old the jack off move, and it's so great. It's your first impression of him, and it's hilarious.
Right. Well, and he shows up straight out of the undercover unit So he's filthy and disgusting the way he should look if he's undercover. And Aykroyd goes right off on him about the way you're supposed to dress, the dress code for the force and da 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 da. And that's where the whole they set up that tension between them and show that Strebeck is just this loose cannon, fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy, and Friday is by the book, and we see that as they're driving to their to basically the Playboy mansion, and Aykroyd is going 8 miles an hour under the speed limit on the freeway, and
save the taxpayers' gas.
Flying past him on both sides.
But they also go to the zoo. And it's a great play there where they see the things that are missing, and the lion has a mohawk, and Aykroyd goes into the, it's just terrible. And how do you explain that to these kids? And he's so serious. And Pep looks at the kids and goes, "Kids, it'll grow back." And they all just cheer.
You know what that reminds me of? For whatever reason, it reminds me of the end of this. The Seinfeld episode where he's like, "You're not working on your home," and then they all go boo, all the kids. They all just have the same reaction. This one, same thing. All the kids just cheer. Too much, but now we're going to get. Oh, go ahead. I was just going to go to the next scene where they are pulling up into the Playboy mansion, where I just started rolling laughing. It's right when they pull up to the gate, and they ring up, and they say, "Oh, the gal." It says, "Oh, thank God, vibrator repair."
Right.
But we meet the Hugh Hefner type character who runs this place and has Bait magazine, played by Dabney Coleman.
I love Dabney Coleman.
I mean, he's totally 80s, and he is just fantastic. He has this lisp, and he doesn't have a big part of this movie, but he plays his role like he's just perfect the way he plays this character, this ridiculous guy. And I love that. And I love the way he talks. Whatever made him decide to do that is just, I love it.
And to play into the Hugh Hefner-esque role that he's doing, a lot of the women that are in this scene are former Playboy playmates.
Oh, in real life ones?
Really? Yes. So
they're all former bait models too.
The bait mates is what they call them, which I found hilarious.
Field and Cream.
Bait mate. Like, come on. That's outstanding little play on words there. So I was a fan of that.
The part that made me feel really old was when she goes, "Do these look like the breasts of a 43-year-old?"
No, they don't.
Here I am at 47.
Right.
They look quite impressive, bordering on spectacular.
I love the line that I wrote down from this scene was when all these women would just come up and talk to them. And of course, Pep knows every single one of them, knows their name, knows the month and the year that they were.
And they're like likes and dislikes and turn-ons.
Yes. And Friday looks at him and goes, "You should be in missing persons. You seem to know everyone."
I liked the line. So the bait mate is like coming on to Joe, like hard. So Pep is like, I first left my notebook in the car. He's going to go get it to leave him there to have a chance to talk to her. And when Joe, of course, decides they should leave, he goes, "Let's go to your car and find that notebook."
Yes. Well, and I love Pep, how he's switching between just absolutely staring right at her breasts to like looking off to the side, like he's trying not to, and then he'll come back and like, oh, it's just great.
I'm not sure what you have next, but I think maybe the funniest part in this entire movie is Enid Borden, the lady they go talk to.
Mm-hmm.
She is the filthiest, funniest, angriest woman you ever saw. She's about time you pencil dick showed up. Every word she says is gold, and she ends it with, "Unlike some people, I have a heart. God damn it, that miserable little bag of puke." But you could go on, and she has like 10 lines in between that, and everyone is just filled with profanity and anger, and it's just hilarious.
before we get away too far from the Playboy Mansion, though, I want to point out that there is a line that Dan Aykroyd says that where he just goes on, and it's the one that's used. You hear it all the time on K-Fan, where he goes,
Oh,
"Listen,
yeah.
hotshot, I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out." And then that whole thing, and I swear, because I've heard this about Aykroyd too, is that he can just rattle off a line like that without looking at a cue card, without anything. That's just what he does. And so just sort of that line accentuates his talent.
Right.
Yeah,
And
he is one of
that's-
those
it
guys
pulls it off
who's
perfectly.
just brilliant. Like he wrote all these movies, and I mean, he's really smart, and he can. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Right.
And that was the line I was looking forward to hearing going into this, because I know that
Did you
line
know it
they
was
played-
from this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, because I knew it was Aykroyd, and it just seems like his
Like a Joe
tenor, his
Friday
voice is that Joe Friday voice. I always assumed that he was saying it to Pep, because I knew that, Hanks is playing the morally ambiguous kind of, partner, so that's who I always thought he was saying it to. So when it came up, it gave me a smile.
Mhm. All right. So now after they go talk to that woman, then they start looking for Emil Muzz,
I love
who
this
is
part.
described as big, bad,
Big,
and
bad,
stupid looking.
Stupid look. An exact
Look at-
match.
An exact match.
That is probably the line that I remember the most and used the most and thought was the funniest, like from way back all that time ago.
Right. And
Big,
then
bad,
they have this
stupid
big,
looking.
ridiculous police chase that ends up on the beach, and they finally capture him, get him back to the police station, and then it's the intense scene between Pep Streebek and Emil Muzz.
And a drawer.
And a drawer.
And his balls.
And his balls.
I love when he asked for a pack of chewing gum. What was the bar?
Snickers.
Snickers bar.
Mhm.
And that's what Joe Friday comes back with and gives him exactly.
My lord.
But in between, he's
chewing
getting his balls hit.
Yeah.
Oh.
Speaking of that big chase, though, that starts a thread where they start to keep losing their car over and over again. And so their first
Right.
replacement car, I love because it's a Ford Escort. Reminds me of my
Yes.
first car.
I thought of you, Brad.
I thought of you too. During that chase scene, did you either of you think it was weird because they're like showing like pedestrians and all this as the cars coming up to them? There was a part where people are crossing the street and this guy's like got a basketball. I think he might have been dribbling across the street, and he takes the ball and like throws it at the oncoming car that's about to run him over.
No, I've never noticed that.
Just seems a little strange. Like
What I find strange is how terrible a driver Emil Muzz is. He just keeps hitting things that he doesn't seem like he needs to hit, and he's all over all the way to the very end when he runs into the lifeguard chair. It's like, why did he hit that? He didn't need to hit that.
he doesn't run into it. He
It's
runs
a little
up the
like-
ramp.
Yeah, right, up and over.
It's also, this did remind me of Naked Gun a little bit too. The intro where he's going all around town, and it's like he runs into all of these teddy bears,
Yeah,
and
and he
like
yells,
these
"Look out, Muppets!"
Right. Well, and like in Naked Gun, where Frank backs up and he hits all the like the trailers out at the airport, and he's got all those following him through town, and Muzz hits those two boats that get hooked up to the back of him, and they're like swinging behind him and flying all over the place.
It leads to another great Joe Friday line too, though, where Muzz starts to stand up and he goes, "Sit down, unless you're growing."
I want to back up a minute because I think it's really important to the movie, because the movie is really about the relationship between those two. It starts out that Joe Friday hates Pep, but I do think that the scene with the balls in the drawer, that's where Friday starts to respect him a little
They
bit
do.
more.
They're on the same page there, at least for once.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's where you start to see the friendship start to form a little bit. And then, of course, it grows throughout the movie all the way to the end.
What's interesting about that is you would think that Joe would be totally against that, even though it's effective. But he's like breaking the rules. He shouldn't be doing that to the guy.
Right.
But he's all in favor of it. Like he leaves the room and encourages him to.
He's
Well,
being
Joe-
tough on the criminal and getting the job done.
Joe's all about exactly. Yep. Whatever it takes to get the job done.
I think that brings us to maybe the highlight scene of the movie for me, and probably you, Pete, the pagan party. Are we there yet?
Yes, I think we can talk about the pagan party.
So they come across the big pagan party. People against goodness and normalcy. Pagan.
pagan.
Nice work, Friday.
So
gets there to it, and Joe goes, "Well, we're definitely onto something." And Pep, do you think so?
Well, and before this, you got Joe's voiceover about, going and requisitioning a different vehicle, and they have, an idea of what we should be wearing as, modern gang members. And when they walk out and Friday's got the mohawk and, and Hanks looks like he should maybe be Latina, or Latino with the hairnet, and it's just absolutely
a little bit like
ridiculous.
Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does look a little like Freddie Mercury. That's true.
I'm Emil Maz. He tries to over accentuate. And then when the fake cops start laughing, how Hank just overdoes that whole laughing part. That was hilarious.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that's classic Tom Hanks there.
Mm-hmm.
We got the chant of "Kill the Good," and we meet our first vision of Connie Swale here, the Virgin Connie Swale, who. So Alexander Paul, what's she most famous for?
Baywatch.
Yeah, which is shocking because I don't know about you guys. I don't find this woman attractive in any way. And she doesn't have the things that Baywatch is known for.
What's that?
Like, she was the flat-chested
Oh,
babe.
boobs. Okay, sorry.
Oh,
I mean, everybody on that show, runs on the
notice.
beach, but she was like the one outlier. I just never understood. It was so weird.
Well, she was the one that was all business.
I guess. So they had to take that part away from her.
Right, exactly. You can't be business and have a nice rack.
Anyway, they're going to sacrifice her, and they jump in and save her, and there's pills and drugs and a snake and all kinds of stuff going on there.
And they just start getting to know each other while they're being attacked by the snake.
Right.
And Pep is like, oh, and her favorite color is blue.
And I love how he just, shoves the pills down the, snake's mouth and closes the mouth. And I was thinking, if those are uppers, that snake's going to get, even more constricted, so hopefully, must have been some downers in there as well to kill that snake.
I don't know. I think you might be overthinking it just a little bit there.
Am I? Okay.
With that one. Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
I don't know. We could talk to our friend Chris about that. He might know. We'll have him watch the scene. He's a veterinarian. He could answer that question.
The line that I wrote down from this scene is when they finally get out of the pit, and they're running away, and they come across the crowd that's trying to kill them, and the two men, they pull out their guns, and of course Pep has this like Magnum 44 Magnum that's just huge, and Strebeck's just got like a 9mm, and Connie asked Friday, why is his so much bigger than yours? And he just looks at her and goes, I've never needed more.
And those two, they're immediately attracted to each other, and so that's a hot line.
Yes.
Yep.
They get her home.
Well, now as they're leaving, you know what I kept thinking, and I thought about this right when they parked with all of those cars there. My first thought was they're going to get blocked in, like other cars. They're just going to park.
And how did they recognize their missing police car amongst all those other? I mean, the whole getaway is a little. You got to stretch your belief there a little bit, obviously, but
I'm probably overthinking it a little bit now, like Gifford just did.
But she's the Virgin Connie Swale, and they get her home, and she's got this like pink, almost dollhouse-looking house. And this was one of my other favorite lines as a kid. Tom Hanks just looks at it and goes, "Can the beaver come out and play?"
So that house is the same house that he lived in the Burbs.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
But it wasn't pink.
No, it was not pink, but it's the same house that
Wow.
his character lived in the Burbs.
Huh. All
Useless
right,
information. That's what I give this podcast.
That was good information.
Thank you.
The next part I have down is when Joe is getting ready for them to try to break into that milk place. Do you got anything before that?
Just that now they're getting in trouble by the captain.
Oh yeah, the captain is not impressed.
Right.
And they do the whole dance. That's awesome.
They do that. They're dancing around in his office. It's like 4:00 in the morning, and he wants nothing to do with it. And then they get him and the commissioner out to the site, and everything is gone, like nothing happened, which is
There
a
was
little
a
bit
giant
ridiculous.
electronic screen, and that's gone, and
Yep.
Yeah.
there's no sign of anything anymore.
snake
I mean, the
pit is
pit
still
is
in
there, like
dirt.
the guts is still
It's
there.
just a
but-
concrete like sewer thing or whatever, but that's what it was.
I had something before the big milk bust, and that is when they're trying to rack their brain to figure out what to do next. So they go get some coffee, and they go to
Yes.
Pep's favorite place to get coffee is a strip club, and this stripper is up on stage doing her thing, doing her dance, and she comes over and she stands in front of Friday, and she bends over and looks back at him,
through her
and
legs.
in the perfect way, Joe just looks at her with his mug in his hand and just goes, "Ma'am."
But the
He
best
also
line,
agreed
best
that
line is
Pep was right. This is the best coffee in town. It was worth it to go there.
I hate to admit this, Pep, but you're right. This is good coffee. Oh,
This
you
is
should try
good
the French
coffee.
toast.
Right, trying to French toast.
And again, this is another bonding moment between the two. And there's Friday's starting to respect him more.
Yep.
So now then, before the milk invasion, the milk bust, is the fight scene where Joe Friday is in the alley by
I
himself.
love this part.
And
The three youths come up on him.
yes, and basically he's trying to teach him a lesson, like they should go home, get some sleep, or if they needed money, they had to go get a paper
Why don't
route.
you go find a second job? Paper route's a good start.
Yeah.
And then they asked him for the smokes, and he says, "No, I would not encourage anybody to start it. It's a nasty habit." And he's just dead serious with them and doesn't even know. But then after he kicks their asses, he just looks at him and goes, "And on a school night too."
What I love is that he was smoking. He sets his cigarette on a crate, beats the shit out of all three of them, and then just calmly picks up his cigarette, puts it back in his mouth, and keeps smoking.
He's a cool customer.
Yes, he is.
So the whole bust goes way wrong because they went into the wrong place. It's actually milk, and so they get in more trouble from that.
This reminds me, by the way, of the scene in The Untouchables where they make the big bust, and it's umbrellas, where he gets caught with the umbrella. It's the exact same thing that happens.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't remember what's going on here. I just wrote down at this point, my God, Connie is just a terrible actress. She is. I don't know if she's. I don't watch much Baywatch, so I don't know what she's like there. But like,
is she a bad actress in your mind because her breasts aren't big enough?
No, it's because she talks like she's out of breath, and she talks like she's like 12. She's just terrible.
Yeah,
that's
not great.
But why is that the role? I don't know that that's really the role.
She's supposed to be young and innocent. And
I guess. Moving on.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brad. She's not.
So
not great.
Joe ends up getting sent off of the job now because they did try to bust. So that's where I saw it. That's where it came up. They're all at the restaurant, and Worley is there with the police commissioner.
Before that, there's the best line in the movie. One of the best lines.
The best line in the movie.
Where he's introducing Connie Swale to Grandma. This is the Virgin Connie Swale.
Yes, Granny. Well, actually, it's Pep who says it, isn't it?
That's
Granny. This is the Virgin
Connie
Connie
Swale.
Swale.
Have said that.
Now he says, "Granny, ever ridden on the back of a motorcycle?"
That's right.
Not until now, you smooth talker. But they go to the restaurant, and the Virgin Connie Swale is there with them. But Worley is there with the police commissioner and Morgan, Gannon, I guess is his name, Harry
Gannon,
Morgan.
Yep.
And she recognizes him, the priest, Jonathan Worley, as the guy who kidnapped her and threw her into the pit to sacrifice her. And Joe, in his just haste, he believes her, and she's right, but he believes her, but this is not the place you go try to arrest him, and he tries to arrest him right in front of the commissioner, and he loses his job because there's no way they're going to buy that.
Right.
Which we found, there's more to that we find out later on anyway, but.
Right. So then they leave after Joe is stripped of his badge and his gun. So they're on their way home. So they stop for maybe a little interlude, and that's where they're kidnapped by Munns. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So now
they're about to kiss, and then the car gets lifted up from behind.
Picks the car up and flips it over.
Right.
Because they're at a Yugo now.
Right. So the next morning, they're trying to figure out where they are, and Pep is trying to, deduce this. And
I love the change here because now Pep is doing the voiceover.
Right.
So Joe has been doing this voiceover for the whole movie, like in Dragnet, but now Pep does it, which is great
because
it's
Joe got fired.
A totally different tone, and he's talking on a hamburger phone.
Well, and he says the line that it's very strange for him to stay out late because on the day he was born, his mother had him home by 9. And then he's also going through, and you can see his hands, and he's thinking through it. The line is, having sex in a Yugo is logistically impossible.
and he's putting his pen through his finger hole and like pretending what he's imagining. And
right, as this voiceover is going on in his head.
He's thinking so hard. But we do go on to find out that Worley and Caesar, which is Dabney Coleman, the Hefner guy, who are supposed to be at odds, they're actually working together. At least they think they are. And they're planning. It's really, I find this interesting because it's like good and evil teaming up, and they're going to control everybody. The people that love, the unmoralistic stuff that Caesar does will love him, and the people that want to be right and Christian are following Worley, and they'll control everything. And that really seems to fit into our current day politics.
It's the oldest trick in the book is to invent the disease and sell the cure.
Yeah. So turns out we find out right away Worley is actually in charge. He's planning to kill Caesar, but of course the bad guy's always got different plans.
Yes, and the bad guy in this situation is not the pornographer.
No, he's actually quite innocent.
It's the priest. Yes, other than he's a pornographer. That's his only crime.
Right.
Speaking of them kidnapping Friday and the Virgin, so they're being held at Griffith Observatory, which I find interesting that nobody's around. Like they can. It seems like that'd be kind of a busy place for all this stuff to be going on.
Right. You would think somebody would observe them being held captive.
Yeah. All right. Go on.
So now Joe Friday and the Virgin Connie Swale are tied up at the Griffith Observatory, and so then what's his name, Reverend Worley, says his little speech and gives away the whole plot and everything. I'm absolutely counting on all the people of Los Angeles. And the way this is an Oscar-winning actor. He's not. I mean, he's a bit over the top. But it's good. It's funny. It's a comedy.
But muted. It fits his character for sure.
Yes.
Unlike
it makes you want to punch him, and you really hate him. And
he's slimy.
Right.
He's more slimy than the pornographer.
Absolutely is.
Right. So he takes Connie Swale away. So now Joe Friday is still tied up and is about to be taken away by the other guys, while Pep Streebek is watching from the bushes and waits for his moment, goes in and frees his friend, and they get out of there.
Yep.
So they then get away on Streebek's motorcycle, which is a funny scene there. Pretend I'm Connie. And he goes out of control because he's holding him too tight on the motorcycle. But then they wind up getting to the compound and
Playboy Mansion.
The Playboy Mansion, yeah. So then they're kind of waiting outside and waiting for their moment. And this is a really good conversation that they're having, where they really, really do bond. And Streebek is like, "This is what friends do. Call me by my first name. It's not
friendships start with first names.
Yeah.
It's Pep.
Call me Pep.
It's not Junior. Right. It's not Streebek. It's
Bub.
And Friday is there, and he wants to do all this stuff and break in because he's in love, and he wants to go get Connie out of there. But then Pep is the voice of reason and says, "No, remember, you're not a cop anymore, and so you're a civilian, so you would never be a cop again if you went through with this." Right. So basically, he sends him home and says, "I'll take care of this."
So this does lead to my biggest question in the movie.
What's that?
So they do go in, everything's going down, and then this tank comes in. How is Joe Friday in this tank? When he hasn't been reinstated, and he's how did he get in the tank and lead the charge when he.
I
couldn't
think
do
that it was that he just said F it and he doesn't care. That's how badly he wanted to free Connie. And so he went back. He knows where the tank is, how to get it, and all that stuff. And so
Right.
he wound up not listening to Pep. And so then he just goes and gets it and drives it up to where he needs to go.
Which would break all the rules that Pep just told him not to break.
I don't buy it. That's, I mean, obviously it's a comedy and there's a lot of places where you shed your beliefs, but to me that's like I don't get that one at all.
Well, and not only that, but the very end where, you know, they chase down Worley and Connie to the airport and they don't quite get there in time and the plane takes off over them.
That's a little ridiculous.
And then the next scene is him in a LAPD T-38 Talon coming
Mr.
up on the plane.
Man.
It's daytime at this point. They would already be out of U.S. airspace by that point. You know what I mean? It's too many hours later. The
whole ending is a lot.
Yes, it is.
But it's fun, and they get their man. Well, my question is, when he points at him and points down, like, why does he land his plane? Why?
Right.
I mean,
well, it's like they do that. They can escort if they've got a fighter jet, they'll escort planes down like that. Usually, they do that with 2 or 3 jets that will escort them down. Otherwise, they're going to get shot down. Yeah.
And of course, the best end line I think to this movie here is when Pep and Joe are coming up to the police station towards the end, and Joe refers to Connie as Connie Swale.
Yeah, he spent a nice night in the company of Connie Swale.
Yes, no longer the virgin Connie Swale.
And don't you mean the virgin Connie Swale?
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, and then it's just Aykroyd looking at him with his one eyebrow up.
Yep. And there's just a little tiny bit of a smile, you know, coming off of him. Just a little one, you know. Yep. Now,
that
last
brings us to City of Crime.
Yes.
Did you say, Brad, that you wanted to talk more about? Yeah, you want to talk about the song itself?
So yeah, the song at the end in the credits is actually Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks rapping. Mm-hmm. And there's a video. I sent it out, or I posted it. Hopefully, Gifford obviously watched it. I mean, I think this song is pretty freaking good. Actually,
it is good. Yeah,
it's fun. It's fun to hear the two and it's the same as the characters. So Joe is like rapping but speaking, and it's, you know, he's the serious one, and Tom Hanks is rapping, but he's like all happy, and he's you know, it's just your classic kind of crazy Tom Hanks. And I didn't realize there was a video, and like they did a whole video where they're in it. It's just fantastic. It's a great nugget of the 80s is what that is.
Yeah, it's something.
And I would go watch it if you have never seen it.
You should, absolutely. Despite what Gifford says about the movie, I thought it was a fantastic movie, and it held up. It was fun to watch again, just as much fun as it was back in the day. So
yeah, I watched it twice in the last year, and I loved it. But, you know, like you said, I grew up with it, so it makes a difference.
And I mean, I certainly enjoyed going through it with you guys here. It's just more fun when you share it with your friends. Kind of like what I mentioned a couple weeks ago when we did quotable movies, and I was like, Austin Powers, like the first time I saw it in the theater, I didn't think it was that great.
Yeah.
It's so much more fun when you review it with your friends and, you know, go
watch it again. And you'll like it even more.
I have to rent it again. I don't know if I'm going to do that.
All right. So. Well, speaking of Tom Hanks, he has 1 or 2 movie credits to his name. I think he's going to make a name for himself.
Yep. He'll get there.
Up-and-coming actor. So tonight's top 5 list, if you don't mind, we'll dive right in. We are going to be drafting the your top 5 Tom Hanks movies, and there's plenty to choose from.
Well, or you said it didn't have to be all movies either. It could be
that's true. It could be any credits, anything
TV appearances, or maybe the City of Crime video from Dragnet.
Yeah, yep.
One of my favorite stories, though, before we get into it, is when Tom Hanks was on Letterman, and Hanks was talking about how he was playing frisbee in the Washington Mall, Washington D.C. He's playing frisbee with Julia Roberts, and then the police officers there in an area that they weren't supposed to be in, and so a police officer had to come up and tell him to get out of there. So Hank says, "I had to drop an H-bomb." And
Nice.
and then Letterman's like, "H-bomb? What do you mean by that?" "Well, I just told him I'm Tom Hanks. I can do whatever I want." So
he's just the greatest.
And he can pull off a line like that just perfectly, like without sounding arrogant. And it's just funny the way he says it, the way he does it. You just love him more. Like some guys, you would say that or something like that, and you would hate him. You'd be like, "Oh my God, what a douche." But Tom Hanks just pulls it off perfectly, better than I just did.
Weird.
So, all right. So our draft order, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be myself, followed by Gifford, and then Brad. So
that's correct.
Are we ready?
I am.
All right. Well, so many movies to choose from. I am going with Dragnet on my first one.
Wow.
Holy Toledo.
Because it was the first and the one that I've watched the most, and the one that I think is the funniest of all the time.
Way to stick to your guns. So, that's great.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Yep. Well, I'm going to go with my number 1 overall pick and my number 5 overall most quotable movie of all time, and that's going to be Forrest Gump.
Yep, that's a good one.
Shut up, Larry.
Yeah.
I don't believe that it's there for me, but my number 1 movie, the one I wanted more than anything, is Big.
I saw your face coming up to this. That was my number 2
well,
overall.
When Pete picked Dragnet, I'm like, I think I might get Big. It depends. So that's mine.
Excellent.
There's actually a lot of different directions that I could go right now. Do I do comedy? Do I do kids movie? Do I do serious movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I am going to go with The Green Mile.
That's a good movie.
That was my number 3, Pete. All right, I'm going to go with my number 4 then. I'm going to go Saving Private Ryan.
Okay. Then I am going to pick, I could go back and forth on 2 here. I'm going to pick Toy Story.
That is a great.
You can't really argue against Toy Story.
No. I should have clarified on this one. You've just taken the entire franchise with that one.
Well, I kind of figured.
Yeah. So
I mean, if one of you wanted to pick,
hold on.
There's a couple of them that are franchises that you could take, and so I was going to send that out as a rule, but
that kind of puts a snake in my boot there, Pete.
All right. I see what you did there.
Thank you.
I love the movie Apollo 13. I'm going to go with that.
Whew. Great pick. Mostly because it was behind my number 5 overall. Honey, the Care Bears were just here. I'm going with Money Pit.
Wow, you really like the Money Pit.
I love the Money Pit.
I'm not sure that I've ever seen that. I don't even. You talk about it being quotable. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. All right, well, at least my number 3 overall is still sitting here.
Wow.
I think you guys both know that I really love the movie Castaway.
Yep.
And what's better, if you're picking Tom Hanks movies, what's better than a movie where it's basically just Tom Hanks just kicking ass on screen? I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Just him alone.
Let's see here. Road to Perdition.
That's a good one.
Okay, my next highest. I know you guys. Oh, no, it's not this is my next highest. There's No Crying in Baseball.
Oh, I was thinking maybe I'd pick that next. Because that's a great performance.
You're not going to now.
It's a good movie.
There's no crying. Are you crying?
So All right, well then, so I could either pick one of his first movies,
Ooh.
or I could pick one of his most recent movies, which I don't think you guys probably haven't seen, but it is so awesome. I'm gonna go with Splash.
There you go.
That's where I was gonna go next.
Plus, you get John Candy. It's 2 for 1.
That's
and Eugene.
twofer.
Oh no, not Eugene Levy. I'm thinking of Armed and Dangerous.
All right, Pete.
Pete, it's your
Your
last
final
pick. Did you die?
Pick.
I'm thinking.
And you know
I'm
what,
thinking.
Pete? No matter what you pick, it's going to be the right answer, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, there's award-winning movies left. I think you'll be okay.
Yep.
Philadelphia.
That would be one of them.
That
the one
might
that really
put you over the top there.
I think so.
All right. I know you guys aren't a big fan of it. I think you've said in the past, I will watch this every time I see it on television, and that is Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, it's one I should watch again because I've seen it once, and I thought I had such high expectations that it just didn't live up, and I just never watched it again. It's got to be better than I remember though.
Well,
I have it on my list because I know it has to be great.
He's not the primary. I mean, Leo's the primary, but he is so good in it.
Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to go off the board here now and pick. I was saving it for my last one. So when it comes to Tom Hanks, one of my favorite things ever of his, and we're actually going to talk about this when we get to 1990, is his appearances on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, good.
And specifically,
Jeopardy.
Wayne's World, where he's with Aerosmith. Yeah, the Black Jeopardy. That's
Black Jeopardy is.
I thought you were going to go with David S. Pumpkins.
I was getting there.
Yes.
David S. Pumpkins. And to name one more, and I could go on, Mr. Short-Term Memory.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this guy on SNL is almost like an honorary cast member. He's been on so many times and had so many amazing, great, memorable moments, and even got his own recurring thing there with David S. Pumpkins.
Hey, did we decide, Brad? Are you gonna post these without the names? Because I'm really looking forward to the Twitter poll on this one.
I don't know that anybody votes based on our name anyway.
Some people might. A lot of people that I know.
It'd be an interesting concept to try out.
The reason
when I'm voting for myself
is I ask people to go vote for me.
Oh,
so I'm going to ask them to just go vote.
That's cheating if you do that, influencing the vote improperly.
Well, yeah, it's the way.
Well, in that case, then yes, I think it's high time
I think we need to start doing that. Just
all
no
right.
names. Just you go off the list. That's off the merits. Yeah, those are all of them are just.
So the one that I was going to pick instead of Splash, I don't think you guys have probably seen A Man Called Otto, have you?
I have
no. I want to.
My God, I've seen the book I've seen the movie A Man Called Uwe, which was the original foreign movie from, I don't know, Norway or whatever it was. And it was great. And so that's why I didn't pick this, because it was a remake. So I thought, well, Splash is more original. Mm-hmm. But he plays, the crotchety old man. It's just amazing. It's just, the movie will just make you cry and laugh, and he still just can do anything. And I love that movie. We just watched it like within the last couple months. I would highly recommend that one as one you probably haven't seen.
No, I have not seen that one yet. My next highest one on my list that wasn't picked is That Thing You Do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a fun movie.
I think I only have two more here we haven't mentioned. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, where he's Mr. Rogers.
Still haven't seen that.
Another fantastic role. Great movie. Yep. And then Saving Mr. Banks, where he's Walt Disney.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy is just...
Haven't seen that one either.
Did you guys say Captain Phillips yet?
Nope.
No.
Didn't say that yet.
I've got that on my list.
Seattle / You Got Mail.
Oh, I do. I forgot. They split to my next page. I had those two together, Sleepless in Seattle and You Got Mail.
Yep.
Da Vinci Code.
Yep.
There's another franchise. So there's 3 or 4 franchises we've named. The Terminal.
Terminal was good.
Turner and Hooch.
Bachelor Party.
The Burbs, which you mentioned during the episode. Charlie Wilson's War.
Who else would play Sully Sullenberger in a movie?
Sully, that was good.
Other than Tom Hanks. I mean, it's perfect. Yeah, I've got
Bachelor Party.
I wasn't a
Sorry.
big fan of the new Elvis movie that came out,
Oh yeah,
but you can't argue with his acting and his his character.
I did like Elvis, and he's much different role there.
Mhm. Yeah,
All
he's got a lot of good ones.
Anything else to add?
No, good pick, Pete. Just the
Yeah.
facts.
Hey, Gifford, you look a little tired. What band have you been listening to all night?
I've been listening to a lot of Preacher Row.
The Virgins, Preacher Row?
Oh, those guys are not virgins. Except maybe the pool boy. The pool boy. might have been a virgin.
Dun.
There you go. Here they are.
Read them their rights. Read them their rights.
Thanks for listening, folks.
Bye. Enforce the law.
Standing on my own tilted, no one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your song is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. Hands tied, tell me on my back. I turn and I look to you. I'm scared, but there's nothing I can do.